The fog hung heavy outside Chloe's apartment window, a gray shroud that blurred the world into oblivion, much like the haze that had settled over her life. She sat curled in her worn armchair, the only light, a flickering laptop screen casting blue shadows across her face. The room was silent, save for the distant hum of the refrigerator, a mechanical heartbeat in an otherwise lifeless space. Chloe's fingers moved mechanically over the trackpad, scrolling through the shelter's website, not searching exactly but drifting as if pulled by some invisible current. Faces blurred by cats with pleading eyes, mutts with wagging tails frozen in pixels. Then she stopped. There he was, a German shepherd named Bullet, his muzzle scarred like cracked earth after a drought, his gaze fixed on something far beyond the camera. Those eyes, calm yet shattered, held the weight of battles unspoken. Chloe's breath caught a sharp intake that echoed in her chest like a forgotten echo. Why him? She didn't know, but in that moment the fog outside seemed to seep inward, wrapping around her heart, whispering of a despair she recognized too well. Her hand trembled as she clicked for more details, the cursor hovering like a hesitant promise. The shelter loomed at the edge of the coastal town. A squat building battered by salt-laced winds, its concrete walls stained with years of neglect and winter rains. Chloe pulled her coat tighter as she stepped inside the door, creaking like a weary sigh. The air hit her first thick with the metallic tang of disinfectant, masking the underlying musk of fear and urine, a scent that clung to her skin like damp fog. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting harsh, unforgiving shadows that stretched across the rows of chain-link kennels, each one a cage of quiet desperation. Dogs paced or lay listless, their whines a low chorus that echoed off the cold floors slick with condensation. In the far corner, Bullet occupied his pen, a 9-year-old German shepherd, whose once powerful frame now seemed diminished, curled into himself like a shadow retreating from light. His fur, a mix of black and tan, faded by time, bore the faint outline of scars. A jagged line across his muzzle, a limp in his hind leg, hinted at even in stillness. His breath came shallow, visible in the chill that permeated the space, as if the building itself exhaled defeat. A clock on the wall ticked relentlessly each second, a reminder of his scheduled end tomorrow, the euthanasia list pinned nearby like a death warrant. Chloe approached slowly, her boots echoing softly, the environment a mirror to her own inner barrenness, a place where hope came to fade just like the fog rolling in from the sea outside. Chloe stood frozen before Bullet's kennel, her fingers curling tightly around the hem of her coat knuckles, whitening as if gripping the edge of a crumbling cliff. The world narrowed to the cold bars between them, a barrier that felt achingly familiar, like the invisible walls she'd built around her heart after her brother's letters stopped coming. Those crisp military envelopes that once carried stories of distant sands and unbreakable bonds, now just echoes in an empty drawer. She wouldn't name him, not even in her thoughts. The pain was a dull blade, twisting deeper with every recall, leaving her numb, a hollow vessel adrift in the fog of her days. Why was she here? The question looped in her mind unanswered as her breath came in shallow puffs, misting the air like fragile secrets. Bullet lay still, his scarred form a mirror to her paralysis eyes, half-lidded body coiled in silent surrender, as if he too had learned that movement invited more hurt. Chloe's hand rose, trembling, hovering inches from the chain link, but she pulled back, the gesture aborted like a promise she couldn't keep. Her chest tightened, a quiet storm brewing beneath the surface, not with tears or sobs, but with a profound silence that screamed of losses unacknowledged. She averted her gaze, staring at the scuffed floor instead, where paw prints faded into nothing much like the footprints her brother had left in her life, indelible yet erased by time. The shelter's chorus of whines faded to a distant hum, leaving only the throb of her pulse, a reminder that she was alive, though barely feeling it. Bullet shifted ever so slightly, his ear twitching, but Chloe remained rooted, her numbness a shield cracking under the weight of an inexplicable pull toward this broken creature who reflected her own unspoken fractures. As Chloe turned to leave, her footsteps heavy with unresolved ache, Bullet stirred for the first time, his head lifting slowly like a sentinel rousing from a long vigil. His eyes, deep pools of shadowed amber, locked onto hers with an intensity that pierced the dim light, holding her in place as if whispering secrets across the void. A faint scar across his muzzle caught the flicker of the overhead bulb, glinting like a hidden blade. Outside, through the fog-shrouded windows, a distant rumble echoed a car engine idling in the mist, too deliberate to be random, suggesting someone lingered in the shadows watching. Chloe felt a shiver crawl up her spine, not from the chill, but from the prickling sense that this moment was a threshold, a quiet pivot where fates intertwined. Bullett's gaze didn't waver, a silent vow etched in his steady stare, promising upheavals. Yet to come dreams of battles, ghosts of missions and truths buried like landmines in the past. Chloe's past unfurled in her mind like faded photographs scattered across a dusty attic floor, each one a shard of a life that once pulsed with color and warmth. She remembered summers by the coast, the salt air sharp and alive where she and her brother Alex would race along the fog-kissed beaches, their laughter cutting through the mist like lighthouse beams. Alex, older by 3 years, had been her anchor, tall with a grin that promised adventure, enlisting in the military at 20, his letters arriving like lifelines from arid deserts and hidden outposts filled with tales of camaraderie, and a loyal canine partner he never named but described with a reverence that made Chloe envious. "He's got my back," Alex wrote once, "like you always did." But then the letters stopped, replaced by a folded flag and condolences that echoed hollow in their family home, the news of a failed mission, shrouded in classified silence, leaving Chloe to piece together fragments from whispers and nightmares. The loss cracked her world open. Their parents withdrew into grief's shadow, and Chloe at 27 fled to this foggy town, burying the pain under layers of routine, her once vibrant spirit dimmed to a flicker. Regret gnawed at her words, unsaid visits unmade, turning her into a ghost, haunting her own life isolated in an apartment that smelled of solitude. Visiting the shelter had been an impulse born from sleepless nights, where Alex's absence loomed largest, a subconscious search for someone to fill the void, though she dared not admit it. Bullett's photo had stirred it all, his scarred gaze echoing Alex's unseen wounds, pulling her toward a connection she feared yet craved, as if adopting him might mend the fractures time had etched into her soul. Chloe's days blurred into a monotonous rhythm, each one a frozen tableau in the dim light of her coastal apartment, where the fog outside seeped through cracked windows like an uninvited guest. Mornings began with the shrill alarm slicing through silence, her hand fumbling to silence it, before rising to brew coffee that tasted of ashes sipped alone at a kitchen table scarred by absent meals. Work at the local library was a mechanical dance, shelving books with titles that mocked her isolation, Journeys Home or Bonds Unbroken. Her interactions limited to curt nods and scanned barcodes, a defense against the vulnerability of conversation. Evenings dissolved into numbness, a solitary dinner from a microwave tray, the hum of the TV, a white noise barrier against intrusive thoughts, her eyes glazing over reruns, while her mind wandered to Alex's last letter, tucked away like a wound she wouldn't prod. She avoided mirrors, dreading the hollow reflection staring back, eyes ringed with shadows, hair pulled into a careless knot, a woman who moved through life like a specter. Scrolling shelter sites at 2 a.m. had become her ritual, a quiet rebellion against the emptiness, though she never committed until Bullett's image pierced the veil, his calm scars a silent accusation of her own paralysis. The apartment mirrored her inner void, sparse furniture draped in dust walls, bare of photos, the chill air heavy with unspoken regrets. Adopting him felt like a crack in her armor, a fleeting spark of agency in a life suspended. Yet it terrified her caring meant risking the thaw of emotions long iced over a descent into the grief she'd armored herself against. Bullett's existence had been forged in the crucible of conflict, a retired military K-9, whose scars mapped a history of loyalty stretched to its breaking point. 9 years old now, his body bore the testament of service, a faint limp in his right hind leg, from shrapnel that had torn through muscle during a midnight ambush in a dusty foreign valley where explosions lit the sky like false dawns. His muzzle crossed by a jagged white line spoke of a close encounter with barbed wire during a patrol gone awry, the pain a sharp memory that made him flinch at the clink of metal chains even in the shelter's quiet. Once under Captain Reyes's command, Bullet had been unbreakable, a German shepherd with a coat-like shadowed armor, his senses honed to detect threats invisible to human eyes, his bark a thunder that scattered enemies. Missions blurred in his instinctual mind. The acrid smoke of gunfire, the metallic tang of blood, the steady rhythm of Reyes's boots beside him, a partnership built on unspoken trust. But the failed operation haunted him most, the one where chaos erupted in a narrow alley. Bullets ricocheting like angry hornets, and a soldier fell, protecting him a scent of sacrifice that lingered in Bullet's nostrils like a ghost. Betrayed by bureaucracy after his retirement deemed expendable, with a limp that slowed him, he was shuttled to the shelter, his survival instincts dulled by abandonment's sting. He refused to bark now, his voice silenced by the weight of loss, hypervigilant eyes scanning for dangers that weren't there, ears perking at every distant rumble as if thunder mimicked artillery. Mistrust cloaked him like a second skin. He recoiled from outstretched hands, his body tensing like coiled wire, a soul battered by the very duty that defined him. In Chloe's presence, though, something flickered a faint recognition in his scarred gaze, as if her scent carried echoes of that fallen soldier mirroring her own hidden wounds in his unyielding silence. In the dim confines of Chloe's apartment, where the fog pressed against the windows like forgotten memories, she and Bullet existed in a shared void, their emptiness reflecting one another, like twin shadows cast by a single flickering light. Chloe moved through the space with deliberate slowness, her hands hovering near but never quite touching, respecting the invisible chasm that Bullet maintained a wary distance born of betrayal, his body curled in the corner like a fortress of fur and scars. She saw her own isolation in his stillness, the way he avoided eye contact, his amber gaze skimming the floor as if the weight of connection might crush him, much like how she dodged reflections that revealed her hollowed cheeks and distant stare. Their silences intertwined, heavy and unspoken. Chloe's internal monologue whispered of Alex's absence, a brother lost to war's maw, while Bullet's instincts replayed the chaos of that fatal mission, the scent of blood and Reyes's regretful commands echoing in his bones. Subtle cues bridged their worlds. Her sigh as she sank onto the couch mirrored his shallow breaths, a rhythmic acknowledgement of pain too deep for words. As days blurred, Chloe offered food from a distance, watching him eat with guarded precision, his limp a poignant echo of her emotional hobble through life. Bullet in turn observed her from afar, his ears twitching at her muffled sobs in the night, a non-verbal pact forming in the quiet, two souls adrift, recognizing the fractures in each other, their parallel arcs of mistrust slowly curving toward the possibility of trust, like rivers converging in a misty valley. The winter storm descended upon the coastal town like a vengeful specter, winds howling through the fog-shrouded streets, whipping rain against the shelter's rattling windows in chaotic fury. Chloe gripped the steering wheel tighter as she navigated the slick roads, her heart pounding in sync with the thunder that rolled like distant artillery, each boom sending a shiver through her reserved frame. She hadn't planned to return so soon, but Bullet's image haunted her sleepless night, pulling her back into the tempest as if fate itself urged her forward. Inside the shelter, chaos reigned. Lights flickered erratically. Dogs barked in frantic chorus, their fear amplifying the urgency of the night. Bullet cowered in his kennel, his powerful body trembling, ears pinned flat against his skull, his scarred muzzle pressed to the cold floor as if seeking solace from the ground. The thunder mimicked gunfire in his mind, triggering flashes of battlefield pandemonium, explosions blooming like deadly flowers, the acrid smoke choking the air. Chloe's breath caught at the sight of him, a visual shock that pierced her numbness. His amber eyes wide with primal terror, fur matted from the damp chill seeping through cracks. The shelter worker, harried and soaked, shouted over the din about closing early, the euthanasia clock ticking louder in the storm's rage, Bullet's time running out like sand in a fractured hourglass. Urgency clawed at Chloe's chest, the storm's chaos mirroring her inner turmoil, forcing her closer to the cage, where Bullet's vulnerability laid bare a wound she recognized too well. Chloe knelt before the kennel, rain dripping from her coat onto the slick floor, her mind a battlefield of conflicting whispers as thunder shook the walls. Why risk this? Her logic argued, a cold voice, echoing the isolation she'd cultivated since Alex's death. Caring meant pain attachment, a chain that could drag her back into grief's abyss. Bullet's trembling form blurred through the bars. His calm facade shattered, revealing a soul as fractured as hers, and empathy surged like a forbidden tide tugging at her resolve. She imagined the mess vet bills for his limp nights, soothing his flinches at storms, the vulnerability of loving something that could be lost, just like her brother. Her hand hovered near the latch, fingers curling back in retreat. Fear coiling in her gut like the fog outside, fear of failing him, of exposing her own scars in the process. But then Bullet whimpered, a soft, broken sound, barely audible over the storm, his eyes meeting hers in a plea that bypassed words, shifting the balance. Logic faltered against the raw pull of compassion, her internal argument crumbling as she realized numbness was its own cage, and freeing him might unlock her own. With the storm raging like a beast unleashed, Chloe's hand finally moved, trembling as she fumbled for the adoption papers thrust at her by the frantic shelter worker, ink smudging under rain-damp fingers in a hurried scrawl that felt as irreversible as a scar. Logic screamed retreat, but empathy propelled her forward, her voice barely audible over the thunder as she muttered, "I'll take him," the words tasting of salt and resolve. The worker unlocked the kennel with a clank that echoed like a gunshot, and Bullet hesitated, his body low to the ground, eyes darting between freedom and the chaos outside. Chloe knelt, coat pooling around her like a dark halo, extending a hand not in demand, but in offering, her palm upturned vulnerable. He inched forward, nose twitching at her scent, familiar yet foreign, stirring buried instincts. The rescue was messy. Bullet slipped on the wet floor, Chloe's grip awkward as she coaxed him into her car, rain lashing their faces, his fur soaking her seats in a baptism of mud and trust. As she slammed the door, thunder cracked overhead, but Bullet didn't flinch this time, curling into the back seat with a sigh that mirrored her own exhale of commitment. The drive home blurred through sheets of water wipers slashing like frantic heartbeats, the act imperfect, rushed, uncertain but profoundly real. A bridge crossed in the storm's eye, binding their fates in quiet defiance. Back in the apartment, the storm's fury muted to a distant rumble. Chloe set a bowl of water on the floor, stepping back to give Bullet space, her movements deliberate, like a dancer navigating fragile ice. He entered warily, paused, leaving wet prints on the linoleum, his limp more pronounced in the quiet body, tense as if expecting betrayal in every shadow. Chloe sat cross-legged against the wall, avoiding his gaze, her internal thoughts a whirlwind. What have I done yet? As Bullet approached the bowl, lapping tentatively, a flicker of relief softened her features, the first sign of acceptance in his cautious thirst. He watched her from the corner, amber eyes guarded but observant, his scarred muzzle dripping the silence between them, thick with unspoken histories. Chloe offered kibble next, scattering it gently, not forcing proximity. He ate slowly, each crunch a tentative step toward alliance, his tail unmoving but his posture easing ever so slightly. As night deepened, she draped a blanket in the corner, whispering, "You're safe now," though the words felt as much for herself, a promise echoing Alex's letters of unbreakable bonds. Bullet settled there, not close, but present, his breaths sinking with hers in the dim light, a fragile trust, budding like the first green shoot after winter's thaw. Their bond formed in these small offerings, space, sustenance, silence, a mutual vow etched in glances and gestures, healing's whisper amid the lingering storm. In the shadowed corners of Chloe's apartment, where the fog-filtered light cast elongated silhouettes like unspoken doubts, Bullet maintained a vigilant perimeter, his presence a silent sentinel amid the unfamiliar quiet. He paced slowly at first, his limp a rhythmic whisper against the worn floorboards, growling low, a rumble born from the depths of betrayal whenever Chloe's movements grew too abrupt, her shadow crossing his like an intruder in the night. She respected the gulf, sitting across the room with knees drawn up, her reserved nature mirroring his guarded stance, both avoiding the intimacy that threatened to unravel their carefully woven defenses. Bullet's amber eyes followed her from afar, piercing but distant, flitting away at any direct gaze, as if eye contact might summon ghosts from his military past. The sharp commands of Reyes, the chaos of missions where trust had been his only armor. Chloe felt the chill of his caution, a cold distance that echoed her own isolation, her internal thoughts swirling. He's like me, walled off, fearing the crack that lets pain in. Nights stretched long. Bullet curling in the farthest corner, his body a coiled spring ears twitching at every creak of the building settling, while Chloe lay awake, the silence heavy with unspoken histories. Growls softened over days into mere huffs, guarded looks lingering a fraction longer. But neither bridged the divide, their mutual silence a tentative truce in the apartment's dim haze. Bullet's scars seemed to deepen in the low-light symbols of survival, and Chloe wondered if her own invisible wounds showed as plainly the wary shadows between them, a canvas for the slow dance of healing yet to begin. One evening, as the fog thickened outside like a veil over buried secrets, Chloe noticed Bullet favoring his hind leg more than usual, a fresh scrape on his paw, weeping slightly perhaps, from a shard of glass hidden in the apartment's neglected corners. She approached with deliberate calm, a bowl of warm water and bandages in hand, her heart echoing the storm's distant thunder from days before. Bullet tensed his body rigid as a battlefield statue, eyes narrowing in wary observation from his corner, but he didn't growl, only watched his breath quickening like a soldier spotting movement in the shadows. Chloe knelt at a respectful distance, dipping a cloth into the water, the steam rising like fleeting memories, and murmured softly, "It's okay, boy." Her voice a fragile thread in the quiet. He allowed her closer inch by inch, his scarred muzzle twitching at the scent of antiseptic, mirroring Chloe's own flinch at the vulnerability unfolding. As she gently cleaned the wound, her fingers brushing his fur with feather-light touch. Bullet's stillness spoke volumes, a shared vulnerability, his pain a echo of her suppressed grief over Alex, the brother whose letters had described tending similar wounds in far-off wars. Chloe's internal monologue whispered parallels. We're both marked carrying hurts that don't show until prodded. Bullet's eyes softened fractionally, holding hers for a beat longer, his wary gaze shifting from suspicion to quiet endurance, the act of care bridging their silent worlds. The wound-bandaged Chloe retreated, but Bullet remained his presence a subtle acknowledgement, the shared moment of pain weaving the first fragile strands of connection in the apartment's hushed atmosphere. The crash of a ceramic mug slipping from Chloe's hands shattered the apartment's quiet, the sound slicing through the fog-muffled evening like a grenade's echo. Bullet flinched, his body snapping low to the floor, ears pinned back, eyes wide with a terror that wasn't here, but somewhere far away. Sand-choked air, the roar of explosions, the frantic shouts of soldiers in a narrow alley where death loomed like a ravenous shadow. His scarred muzzle quivered a low whine, escaping as he pressed against the wall. The memory of a battlefield mission vivid, the soldier who shielded him, blood soaking the dust, the scent of loyalty and loss intertwined. Chloe froze her pulse, hammering the spilled coffee pooling like dark regret on the linoleum. The sound had stirred her own ghost's letters from Alex, his words scrawled in fading ink about a dog who never left his side, a mission gone wrong under a sky lit by fire. "He's my shadow," Alex had written, and now Bullet's reaction clawed at her, unearthing a buried ache. She knelt slowly, not to clean the mess, but to meet Bullet's gaze, her internal monologue. A storm. Was it you? Did you know him? The parallel struck like lightning, their shared flinch, the way loss had carved them both hollow. Bullet's whine softened his eyes, locking onto hers, not with trust yet, but with recognition. A silent tether forming as the broken mug lay between them, a fragile bridge across their mirrored pasts, tying Chloe's grief to Bullet's scars in the apartment's dim hush. Days later, the fog outside softened and sunlight filtered through Chloe's apartment in tentative rays, painting the walls with a warmth that felt foreign, like a guest long absent. On impulse, Chloe picked up a tennis ball from a dusty corner, rolling it gently across the floor, the sound a soft thud against the quiet. Bullet's ears perked his head, tilting the scar on his muzzle, catching the light like a badge of survival. He hesitated, body tense, then moved slowly, at first his limp a quiet rhythm chasing the ball with a cautious grace that belied his war-worn frame. His tail flicked not quite a wag, but a spark of life, and Chloe laughed a sound so rare it startled her, bubbling up like a spring breaking through frozen earth. Bullet returned, dropping the ball at a distance, his amber eyes meeting hers with a flicker of playfulness, a crack in his guarded armor. The apartment, once a mausoleum of silence, hummed with this small joy, the air lighter as if the fog had lifted just for them. Chloe tossed the ball again, her smile mirroring Bullet's hesitant prance, their shared moment a dance of tentative trust. Her internal thoughts sang, "He's alive, and so am I." The warmth spread not just in the room, but within her, a fragile ease settling like dust motes in sunlight. Bullet paused, panting softly, and for the first time the space between them felt less like a chasm and more like a path, their laughter. Her voice, his soft huff, a quiet symphony of safety dawning. The fog pressed thick against Chloe's apartment windows, blurring the world into a dreamlike haze, but inside the air felt different, warmer, charged with the weight of something shifting. It was late, the hour when silence grew heavy, and Chloe sat on the couch, her knees pulled tight. Staring at the worn photo of Alex, she'd finally dared to unearth his smile, a ghost from brighter days. Bullet lay in his corner, his scarred muzzle resting on his paws, amber eyes tracking her with a quiet intensity that had softened over weeks. Then, unprompted, he rose slowly, deliberately, his limp a faint echo of battles past, and crossed the room, each step a cautious vow. Chloe's breath hitched as he stopped beside her, his warmth radiating before he lowered himself, resting his head on her knee with a sigh that seemed to carry the weight of deserts and loss. Her hand trembled, hovering, then settled gently on his fur fingers, tracing the jagged scar along his muzzle, a map of survival mirroring her own hidden wounds. Tears fell silently, not from sorrow, but from the raw surrender of this moment, Bullet's choice to come closer to trust, cracking open her guarded heart. Her internal monologue whispered, "He sees me, and I'm not alone." The room felt alive, the fog outside no longer a shroud, but a cocoon, their bond sealed in this quiet act of surrender. Bullet's eyes half closed, his breathing steady, and Chloe wept softly. Her touch of promise returned their shared vulnerability, a beacon in the night illuminating the path toward healing. The coastal town's fog thickened, swallowing streetlights in a ghostly haze as if the world itself held its breath. Bullet's newfound ease shattered one night when a low growl rumbled from his throat, his body rigid as he stared at the apartment's window, ears pricked like sentinels catching a distant threat. Chloe, stirring from a restless nap, felt the air shift oppressive, charged with an unseen menace. Bullet's amber eyes, once softened by trust, now burned with hypervigilance, his scarred muzzle twitching as he paced, nails clicking on the linoleum like a countdown. Outside, the fog muffled a faint crunch of gravel, too deliberate for the wind, suggesting footsteps circling closer. Chloe's pulse quickened, her internal thoughts racing. What does he sense? Is it real? Bullet's posture, tail-low hackles raised, echoed his military days. Instincts honed in war zones where danger lurked in shadows. The apartment, once a sanctuary, felt like a trap, the fog a curtain hiding something or someone tied to Bullet's past. A chill crept through the cracked window, carrying the salty tang of the sea, and something sharper like the memory of gunpowder. Chloe approached the glass, peering into the gray void, seeing nothing but feeling the weight of being watched. Bullet's growl deepened, a primal warning, signaling a threat rooted in his scarred history, pulling Chloe toward a truth she wasn't ready to face: the fog, a mirror to the ghosts stirring within them both. That night, the fog seemed to seep into Chloe's dreams, a swirling gray that morphed into a battlefield, the air thick with smoke and the metallic sting of blood. She saw Bullet younger, his coat unscarred, racing through a shattered alley, his bark swallowed by gunfire. Beside him ran a soldier, Alex, his face unmistakable, eyes fierce with determination, shouting commands as explosions tore the sky like bleeding stars. The dream shifted. Alex fell, shielding Bullet, his blood soaking the sand, a sacrifice etched in the dog's frantic whines. Chloe woke, gasping, her chest tight, tears streaming as the apartment's dim light anchored her back. Bullet stood rigid by the couch, growling low at the window, his scarred muzzle twitching with a scent that stirred primal instincts, a stranger's presence heavy with the musk of old guilt. Her internal monologue screamed, "It's him, it's Alex's world invading mine." Bullet's protective aggression surged his body, a taut bow, eyes blazing with recognition of a past betrayal, mirroring Chloe's own flood of grief and rage. The dream had cracked open her suppressed loss, linking her to Bullet's trauma, Alex's death, the mission gone wrong, the soldier who saved him. She stumbled to her feet, hands shaking, whispering, "What do you know, boy?" as Bullet's growls deepened his stance, a shield against the ghosts clawing through the fog outside. Their shared pain erupted a raw collision of memory and instinct, binding them tighter as the scent of danger grew a shadow from Bullet's military past, threatening to break into their fragile sanctuary. The knock came at midnight, sharp and deliberate, slicing through the apartment's tense silence like a blade through fog. Chloe froze her pulse, a frantic drum, as Bullet's growl escalated into a snarl, his hackles raised, body poised as if facing an enemy trench. She opened the door to find Captain Reyes, his weathered face shadowed under a hood, eyes heavy with a guilt that mirrored the storm in her dream. "I just need to see him," he said, voice low, but Bullet's reaction was immediate. Teeth bared a primal fury that pinned Reyes against the doorframe, his presence a spark igniting memories of chaos and loss. Chloe's internal thoughts raced. He knows Alex, he knows what happened. Reyes's gaze flicked to Bullet, then her, a flicker of recognition chilling her blood. "You're his sister," he muttered unprompted, revealing a truth she hadn't spoken. The confrontation crackled with tension. Reyes's halting confession spilled the failed mission, Alex's sacrifice to save Bullet, the cover-up that buried the truth to protect his own career. Bullet's snarls punctuated each word, his body a shield between Chloe and Reyes, loyalty clashing with betrayal. Chloe's voice trembled as she demanded, why hide it, her anger a mirror to Bullet's aggression, both confronting a past that had scarred them. Reyes's shoulders slumped, guilt etching lines deeper than time, but his silence spoke of secrets still guarded the standoff. A volatile bridge between truth and deception, leaving Chloe and Bullet braced for what lay beyond the fog's veil. As Reyes retreated into the fog-shrouded night, his footsteps fading like a receding storm, the apartment fell into a profound hush, the air thick with the residue of revelations and raw emotion. Chloe sank to the floor, her back against the wall, breath ragged as tears traced silent paths down her cheeks, the weight of Alex's sacrifice and Reyes's guilt pressing like an invisible burden. Bullet approached slowly, his limp a quiet testament to shared scars, and rested his head in her lap, his warm breath a grounding rhythm against her trembling hands. She stroked his fur, absently, fingers lingering on the jagged line across his muzzle, a physical echo of the mission's violence that had claimed her brother. The silence enveloped them, not oppressive, but healing, a space where words were unnecessary, their closeness a reaffirmation of trust forged in crisis. Bullet's amber eyes met hers, steady and unyielding, conveying a promise etched in instinct. "I'll protect you as Alex protected me." Chloe whispered, "We're in this together," her voice cracking the moment, sealing a bond deepened by trauma's shadow, closing the chapter on Reyes's immediate threat, but leaving the door ajar for lingering questions. As the fog outside swirled, their physical proximity became a sanctuary, a silent vow of safety and closure anchoring them against the ghosts that still whispered in the dark. The fog clung to the coastal town like a shroud, muffling sounds and heightening the prickling unease that settled over Chloe's apartment in the days following Reyes's visit. Bullet's growls began as subtle rumbles, his ears perking at faint echoes, footsteps crunching on gravel outside, too rhythmic to be random shadows flickering past the window like elusive phantoms. Chloe's heart quickened at his signals, her internal thoughts a whirlwind. He's back, or something worse. She found a military dog tag slipped under her door one evening, engraved with Alex's name, its cold metal, a tangible link to the failed mission, left as a warning or a plea. Bullet sniffed it warily, his hackles rising, body tensing into a protective stance, instincts screaming of danger before Chloe could rationalize it. The apartment felt smaller walls closing in as distant car engines idled longer than necessary, the fog distorting figures into menacing shapes. Bullet paced relentlessly, his limp forgotten in vigilance, amber eyes scanning the gloom outside, a living alarm tuned to threats from his past. Chloe clutched the tag, memories flooding Alex's letters. Bullet scars tying her deeper to the web of secrets Reyes guarded. The tension coiled like a spring, subtle signs accumulating a scratched lock. Anonymous calls breathing silence. Bullet's unwavering watchfulness a harbinger of the storm brewing, pulling them toward an inevitable confrontation in the misty veil. The fog parted like a curtain torn by desperation as Reyes burst into Chloe's apartment, his face twisted in a mask of regret and resolve, the door splintering under his forceful entry. "You don't understand, he can't stay with you," he growled, eyes wild, revealing the depth of his torment over the mission that claimed Alex. Bullet reacted instantly, a blur of black and tan fury, positioning himself between Chloe and Reyes, snarls ripping from his throat like echoes of battlefield commands. The confrontation escalated in a heartbeat, Reyes lunging for Bullet's collar, intent on silencing the living witness to his failures, his hands rough with the weight of hidden truths. Chloe's scream pierced the chaos, her body collapsing against the wall as fear gripped her. But Bullet held firm, teeth snapping in defense, his limp forgotten in the surge of loyalty. The struggle turned physical. Reyes shoving Bullet aside, the dog's body slamming into furniture with a thud that mirrored Chloe's internal collapse, imminent loss flashing before her. Alex's death replayed, Bullet slipping away like her brother had. Reyes's confessions tumbled out amid the fray. "The mission was my fault. Alex died because of me, and Bullet knows too much." The threat was tangible. A life-or-death tangle of limbs and growls, Chloe's hands scrambling for a phone as the fog outside swirled mockingly, the apartment, a crucible where past sins demanded reckoning. In the heart of the fray, as Reyes's grip tightened on Bullet's collar, Chloe's world narrowed to a single searing choice: stand by, or fight her reserved nature, fracturing under the pressure of imminent loss. She surged forward, placing her body between them, hands pushing Reyes back with a strength born of grief's forge, her voice a defiant cry. "You won't take him. He's all I have left of Alex." Bullet's snarls bolstered her, his loyalty a mirror to her resolve, the dog lunging to her side in mutual protection. Reyes staggered, his face crumbling as Chloe's words pierced his guilt, forcing a confession. "I covered it up to save myself, but Alex, he saved us both." The tension piqued Chloe's decision to protect Bullet, transforming the chaos, grabbing a nearby lamp. She swung it as a warning, the act irreversible, cementing her commitment. Reyes backed down, hands raised in surrender, the emotional resolution washing over them like a tide, receding his tears, mingling with apologies, revealing the mission's full horror. Alex's heroism, Bullet's survival, a testament to it. Chloe knelt beside Bullet, her hands in his fur, their bond unbreakable. Now the choice a cathartic release that healed old wounds while forging new strength, the fog outside clearing as if the storm had finally broken. The apartment breathed in soft rhythms after the storm of confrontation, the fog outside thinning to reveal a pale dawn that filtered through the windows like a hesitant apology. Chloe sat on the floor, her back against the couch. Bullet's head cradled in her lap, his breath slow and even, a counterpoint to the minor scratches she tended with gentle dabs of antiseptic. The silence stretched long, not heavy, but restorative, each pause a space for wounds physical and unseen to begin their mending. Her fingers moved methodically, wrapping a bandage around his paw, the fabric whispering against fur while her internal thoughts drifted like mist. We survived together. Bullet's eyes half closed, his scarred body relaxing into the quiet, no flinch at her touch, the tension of Reyes's intrusion ebbing away in incremental exhales. The room held them in a cocoon of decompression, minimal movements, her hand stroking his ear, his tail twitching faintly, punctuating the peace. Long sentences of reflection unfolded in Chloe's mind. Pauses filled with the soft creak of settling furniture, signaling survival's fragile return. The foggy town beyond the glass seemed less foreboding, a world resuming its hush as they lingered in this aftermath, the air laced with the faint scent of rain and relief, a quiet testament to endurance. In the days that followed, the fog lifted gradually from the coastal town, mirroring the slow thaw within Chloe and Bullet, their healing a tapestry woven through repeated small acts that bound them in silent harmony. Chloe would prepare meals, setting Bullet's bowl down with a soft clink, the savory aroma of kibble mixed with broth filling the air, and he'd approach without hesitation, his limp easing as he ate, tail wagging in subtle arcs that echoed her growing smiles. Sensory details enveloped their routine, the warmth of sunlight on fur during afternoon walks, the crunch of leaves under paws and boots sinking in rhythm, Bullet following her shadow like a faithful echo of Alex's stories. Her internal monologue noted the parallels, the way he leaned into her during quiet evenings, his breath warm against her side mirroring how she now whispered his name, voice steady with newfound ease. Mutual recovery unfolded in interwoven behaviors, Chloe petting his scarred muzzle, feeling the tension melt while Bullet nuzzled her hand, a gesture of trust that mended her isolation. The apartment transformed no longer a void, but a space alive with presence, shared glances across the room, the soft thud of him lying close, emotions rising and falling in steady tempo. Over time, their bond deepened, a quiet symphony of healing where each small act following eating together, resting in tandem, reflected the other's progress. The fog's retreat, a metaphor for the clarity emerging in their intertwined souls. On a fog-veiled beach where the sea whispered secrets to the shore, Chloe and Bullet walked without leash or command, their steps sinking in a rhythm born of unbreakable trust. Bullet paused, his scarred muzzle lifting to the wind, then turned to her call. Bullet, his name, a soft invocation that drew him close, head brushing her hand in an unexpected nuzzle, breath warm against her skin. Eyes met amber depths reflecting her own quiet release, the gesture a profound emblem of rebirth. Fear's chains dissolving in the salt air, though Reyes's shadow lingered faint, a reminder etched in memory's tide.